Hi everyone, my name is Johanna Gum. In this presentation, I will discuss about the hashtag Fridays for Future. The topic of my research is the hashtag climate activism through social media. The particular social media of my interest is Twitter. So I went to browse and check research about this particular hashtag on Twitter, and most importantly, I checked on the engagements around this topic and this hashtag, which is more recent. And by the way, for this particular hashtag, Fridays for Future, myself, I was involved in this movement since last year, and therefore it was something that, in my view, was very relevant to me. More importantly, for my broader capstone project, pastoralism and climate change. This project is very important and very relevant for me and for my capstone project. And therefore, I'm happy to present about this hashtag Fridays for Future. So the hashtag Fridays for Future is my research case study, and the particular research question I'm interested in is how has social media, namely Twitter, influenced climate debate, climate climate crisis, or debate around climate change. So I looked at conversations and engagements on Twitter around this particular hashtag, Fridays for Future. So I'd like to present and share with you some of the things I found out. Clearly, I cannot proceed without mentioning Greta Thunberg, a 15-year-old Swedish environmental activist who in the year 2018 founded, or more importantly, was very influential in the advancement of this particular hashtag on social media, but mostly on Twitter. Greta Thunberg is a 15-year-old Swedish. Uh, she, in 2018, together with some of her schoolmates, so they went to protest in front of the Swedish parliament. So they did this several days in a week, for about 3 weeks. So they were protesting about climate, the impact of climate around the world, climate change rather, around the world, and how it was very important for the young generation to participate in the climate debate. So around that year, Greta Thunberg was sharing photos of herself and her colleagues protesting a climate crisis in the front of Swedish Parliament. So she shared posts about that event on social media, and it quickly became viral, and many people shared, and it became a very symbolic, common cause hashtag that rallied so many people to support her, and she's now clearly a very popular, famous, and important voice for climate and environmental activism. Yeah, clearly there are many sorry, there are many screenshots I would like to share, but for the sake of time, I just chose a couple of screenshots as some excerpts of this hashtag on Twitter, and I would like to, in this slide, share about two environmental activists from different parts of the world one from Uganda and the other from United Kingdom, and to show really how this hashtag as a symbol of online activism for climate cause is that, as I said in the earlier slide, that began in Sweden has now become a global phenomenon, not just in the global north, as well as in the global south, which is mostly affected by the impact of climate change. So, in the, the photo on the left shows climate activist Patience Nabukalo from Uganda. She, as you can see, she's holding a sign post showing school strike for climate. On her post, she also has indicated uh, her protest for climate solidarity with Sudan, South Sudan. So, in this particular slide, for this particular excerpt, and in the following excerpt in the next slide, the activists were showing their support and solidarity, not just to the climate directly, but as well as to events that influence the outcome of climate change. For the case Patience Nabukala on the left, she indicates in her post she's linking climate crisis, climate school strike in Uganda, linking it with the current war in South Sudan. And therefore, it's a major combination of not just an online demonstration, climate demonstration, as well as an on-site climate demonstration in Uganda, and linking the climate movement, to the causes for war in South Sudan, cause for peace actually, which in her definition of the hashtag activism makes it more broader to include the war in South Sudan, meaning that for climate change to progress, debate for climate change, to progress, war in South Sudan must stop. On the right, you can see Dalian Hamilton, a school teenager in Scotland, Edinburgh, Scotland, protesting, showing a photo of several of his schoolmates protesting in front of the Scottish Parliament. Actually, both of these screenshot excerpts were posted on Twitter on last Friday. That's the reason why the hashtag is called Fridays for Future. So just so you know, this is kind of a global um, interactions of school children around the topic of climate change, climate activism. So they do engage in strikes, school strikes on Friday. Every Friday evening, they spend the latter part of the Friday instead of going to a lesson class, they miss classes instead, and they go to a climate um, strike, mostly directed towards government institutions where policies are made, policies that harm the environment. So in this particular slide, I would like to mention before I proceed to the next slide that school strike in Uganda, as well as school strike in Edinburgh, United Kingdom, country from a rich global north, and another country which is clearly a victim of fossil fuel consumption by the developed countries, showcases solidarity between these two marginalized young generation who are speaking in one voice, and it just makes connection between different voices of and conversations around climate change in developing world around climate change, as well as developed world, organized at schools advocating for climate, organized at school strikes advocating for climate action. So I was happy to see the complementing or how the online demonstration on Twitter supplements the on-site demonstration and makes it more practical and makes it more real. How climate itself is present, is real. Therefore, these demonstrations themselves are very practical and real. Yeah, in this particular slide, I would like to discuss two similar hashtag excerpts, one from Uganda and the other from United Kingdom, from similar countries, as I just mentioned in the earlier slide. So these excerpts I chose particularly focus on hashtag activism, online activism around the debate of climate change and climate crisis. On the left, you can see Nyombi Morris from Uganda, a climate activist from Uganda, protesting about climate on a Friday school strike. As I said earlier, all my excerpts, hashtag excerpts, were posted on Twitter on Friday, last Friday, so on 8th of April, so last week. So this event, as you can see, happens every Friday around the world, different schools in different uh, schools in different countries, different regions of the world. So I chose particularly Uganda and United Kingdom for this particular presentation, just to showcase how this particular hashtag is being used to influence not just the debate about climate change, but also debate on war that's happening or other events that's happening around the world, especially events that are more closely interlinked with the debate of climate crisis. In the earlier slide, remember I talked about um, Patience Nabukalu from Uganda and a climate activist from Uganda. She was protesting not just climate crisis around the world, but but a particular event, war in the neighboring South Sudan, that in her view is a matter of climate issue. War in South Sudan as a matter of climate issue. And so I liked how she made the connection between the war in South Sudan and war and the ongoing climate crisis. And in this particular slide, the climate activist from Uganda, Nyombi Morris, is making a reference, the same reference, but for this case, using the hashtag Fridays for Future school strike event demonstration. He's clearly also participating in the school strike. But now, in his Twitter post, he is also lamenting about the war in Ukraine by Russia, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and referencing that these events are not just single events, uh, but events which are actually define the debate on climate crisis and which can be used to propel voices around climate crisis. So, for instance, talking about how nuclear weapons are being used, or for instance, um, then the war in Ukraine, not just affecting people there, but also the environment in Ukraine and consequently environment around the world, and how wars by major powers like Russia, not just Russia, but other major powers too, is funded by money from fossil fuels. which is directly uh, a major cause for climate crisis. So therefore, in this particular excerpt, uh, Nyambi Morris, climate activist from Uganda, is connecting the 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 issue of climate crisis with the ongoing war in Ukraine by Russia, a country which has vast energy resources, coal, fossil fuels, oil, which are depending on these energy resources, funding their war in Ukraine, and which, by many measures, is a big indicator of how our world is not keen to the debate of climate crisis. So therefore, stopping a war, not just stopping war, but stopping Russia, in his view, uh, is a climate strike event, is an important step towards achieving climate justice. On the right, you can see a climate activist from United Kingdom, Elliot Smith. I just was curious to find how similar to Elliot, the previous activists who shared this particular hashtag. He has in his Twitter profile, in his Twitter handle actually, he has an icon of Ukrainian flag, which was made me very curious how the current events in Ukraine is a major boost for the debate for climate crisis, for our world to work on climate um, protocol and um, to come up with not just policies but real actions that can portray to future generations that indeed we care about the environment. Overall, in closing, I had seen that these particular events, especially particularly the climate convention in United Kingdom, yes, Scotland last year, aroused my interest in this particular hashtag, Fridays for Future hashtag, are a very important, actually in my view, as far as I'm concerned, a very important hashtag engagement in the topic of climate crisis. And um, I'm happy to present about this particular hashtag. And I hope that you can find the connections, not just the debate on climate, as well as ongoing events in Ukraine, as well as in Sudan, South Sudan. Thank you so much.